we can say without exaggeration that she is the greatest person at her work in this lifetime. Before we get to the fun part, I want to remind everyone here that Congresswoman Waters' activism and love for the gay community is not new, nor it has been forgotten. I first learned about Congresswoman Maxine Waters working at a nonprofit in Pasadena, working for on behalf of HIV and AIDS families. I was reminded that during the HIV and AIDS epidemic, it was Congresswoman Waters who was at our side, mobilizing in DC to do something about this epidemic. The National Task Force on AIDS Prevention worked to mobilize leaders around the AIDS crisis among Latino and Black gay men, but the response was none. So, of course, they turned around and they asked someone to take the lead. They asked Congresswoman Maxine Waters. The following year, she organized a hearing of the Congressional Black Caucus on the issues of AIDS among African Americans and Latinos. Aside from Congresswoman Waters, only one more member of the Congressional Black Caucus showed up, Mervyn Demali. It was two people standing on behalf of our community in Washington, D.C. She also created the Minority AIDS Project, a $158 million initiative that provided grants for local nonprofits who were focused on caring and providing programs for the LGBT community and people affected by HIV and AIDS. It wasn't easy to know, it wasn't easy to do, but it was a priority for her. Also in Congress, she voted against the Defense of Marriage Act. Most of her colleagues voted in favor of that. Over the course of her remarkable professional life, she completely transcended what it means to be a public elected servant. There is risk to every choice she has made, not just with particular vote, but with every statement and action against this administration. Many elected officials lose themselves in the roles, and they often lose touch with their community. But Maxine is the real human being, down to earth, grounded. Nothing has been lost in the machinery and in the soul-sapping mechanics of Washington. In fact, she has elevated the industry like no one else has. And damn, she is fierce. Maxine is one of the most honest, most brave, most committed women I know. And I live in a household with 3 Latinas, so I know she's fierce. She's, sorry for the language, but it's true. She spots bullshit pretty quickly and holds those power accountable. They're too scared of her to do anything, especially when she reminds us constantly that the emperor has no clothes. They are embarrassed and hide in their castles, in the people's house, and tweet. We are living in very interesting times, but it's all right. We can't be forever blessed. But with Congresswoman Waters here in California, we remain blessed. And with these trying times, with her around us, somehow those hours seem less uncertain. We love you, Maxine Waters. Everyone, please help me welcome the incomparable Maxine Waters. Wow.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? What a wonderful afternoon. It is so pleasing to be in the company of people you like, people who you enjoy a shared philosophy with, people who you don't have to look over to see if they're about to hit you on the head. And I'm enjoying every minute of this afternoon in this beautiful yard of our host. I want to thank you, Erica and Spike, for allowing us to be here in your beautiful home this afternoon. We appreciate you so very much. Please, let's give them a big round of applause. have a few thank yous that I really want to do to Chris Bowen, the president, and of course you just heard from Ari Roos, the political vice president, and all of those who are leaders with the Stonewall Young Democrats, Alexander Garfunkel, Tanner Brown, who you met, and Aristotle Torres, the secretary. Thank you for your leadership.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much for deciding that you're going to spend part of your life and everything that you do advocating for those who were left off of America's agenda for so long, but of course, no more. No more. Let me say to Chris Bowen, come up and take another bow because you look so good today. You look fabulous. Thank you for your leadership and thank you for your courage. And thank you for recognizing me and calling me a hero. I mean, I'm very taken by the fact that you decided to choose me for this very special award. Now, there are a lot of people in Washington, D.C. who would not agree with you. They call me a lot of other names. So it's wonderful to be here with friends and folks who are all advocating in ways that we have learned to understand will change America. Let me just digress for a moment without real criticism, but because there's such a lack of understanding oftentimes from those in leadership. And I think that those of us who mature and come of age, we really do have to pay attention to young people. We have to listen to what they're saying, what they're doing, because their leadership is so important now to help move America in the direction that it should be going. You've all been paying attention to the confirmation hearings over in the Senate. And yesterday, I guess it was, when Dianne Feinstein, someone I've known for years, a friend, apologized to Kavanaugh for protesters. And I sat up in my seat at my desk because I think we've got to get this thing straight. We don't ask permission to protest.
That's right.
We protest. When we understand that we have to make America hear us and see us and understand that we all have something to say. And so I probably will have a conversation with Dianne and we'll talk about it. And I'll say to her, Dianne, remember, there are those who said that we lacked civility when I got up and talked about the president's cabinet, and I said, if you see him anywhere, if you see him at a restaurant, if you see him in a department store, even at a gasoline station, just tell him you're not welcome here or anywhere. And so it frightened a lot of people. And of course, the lying president said that I had threatened all of his constituents. I did not threaten his constituents, his supporters. I do that all the time, but I didn't do it that time. And but what bothered me so much was they tried to frame that as violence. That's not violence. As a matter of fact, I said the poster child for violence is the President of the United States.
Amen.
He's the one who threatens. Don't forget at his rallies what he said. Go ahead and beat him up. I'll take him out on a stretcher. He even said, you know, if they jail you, I will bail you out, on and on and on. I do not advocate violence. I do not believe you should hit, kick, shoot. I don't think you should do that. I don't do that. And I won't allow anybody to define our protesting in that way. Right. And we have to tell people the difference between violence and incivility and protesting. And so I come from the school of those who use protests to move America forward and to change this country. And I'm proud of that. But let me just say that I am proud of the LGBTQ community. I don't know if you understand what you have done and how you have changed America and how you have helped so many people to change their thinking. I'm very, very proud of the grandmothers and the grandfathers and the aunts and the uncles and all of those who are different people now because of you.
Yeah.
I can remember going to Catch One. Anybody know what Catch One is?
Catch One, yeah.
And I can remember I was asked to be there because they wanted me to meet with and provide some assistance for young people who had been kicked out of their homes.
Yeah.
They were HIV/AIDS positive, many of them. Their parents didn't understand. They had nowhere to go. And God bless Jewel. How many people remember Jewel? Jewel had taken them in. She had given them support. It was the only place they had to go. And I remember meeting with them in the backyard, kind of Catch One. And I looked at these young people who were not only uncertain about so much, frightened, did not feel that they had anywhere to go and lacked support. And when I think of that scene, and I think of what is happening now, and how, and I purposely said grandmothers and grandfathers are embracing their young grandchildren, and mothers and fathers are welcoming the opportunity to show their love for young people in ways that was not done back in the day. Yep. And so give all the grandmamas a big round of applause, and the grandfathers, and the aunts, and the uncles, and thank you for helping to teach America. Now, I did not know that I had such support for the LGBTQ community when I was just a little girl. But there was a young man across the street from me in a place that you've never heard of called Kinloch. That is right outside of Ferguson. You heard about Ferguson, didn't you? Right outside of St. Louis. And this young man's name was Anderson. And Anderson was picked on by so many folks in the community. He was beaten up. They chased him home from school. I didn't know at the time why they were doing all of that, but I knew that was wrong. I knew that it was something wrong with treating, a human being that way. And as I grew older and I understood what it was all about, and I said, well, what difference does that make? And it was at that moment that I guess I understood what was going on and how people who were referred to just then as gays were treated by so many in this country. And I've had the good fortune to work with so many good people. Now, you have to know that I served on the Financial Services Committee with Barney Frank. You don't get any better than that. You don't get any better than that. And Barney Frank and I cried on the floor of the House one day as we were dealing, I think maybe it was marriage equality, or one of the many issues that you have referred to here today. But you should take credit, and even the youngest of the young people, take credit for the work that you're doing to help bring about justice and equality for the LGBTQ community. Give yourselves another big round of applause. And so we find ourselves at a time when we're hearing Mitch and others talk about these wonderful ideas and the things that you're doing, some of which none of us even thought about. You're being so creative in ways to open up opportunity for all of the people. And I'm very pleased about what is happening. But when I compare what you're doing with what we have in Washington, D.C., in the highest office of the land, I wake up in the middle of the night and all I can think about is I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. I have never seen anything like this before in my life. And so to all of our elected officials, to Betty, to all of you progressives that are here, we've got some work to do. And it's not simply about resistance. It's about ensuring that we help people to understand that we deserve better. Yes. That this deplorable, despicable human being that occupies the White House should not be there. We should not be comfortable with it. We should not think about how somebody else is going to deal with. This is all of our fight. Yeah. And every day I say, I'm in this fight. Yeah. I'm in this fight and I'm not going to move. And as you know, there's a difference in how some of our leadership talk about how we should handle all of this. They say, Maxine, please don't say impeachment anymore. And when they say that, I say impeachment, 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 impeachment. One of the reasons we must talk about what to do with someone who disrespects the Constitution, who disrespects human beings, period, who's self-centered, who does not care about the Constitution, who's alienating our allies, who's tied with Putin, won't condemn him, in bed with the oligarchs of Russia, and is responsible for the kind of division coming back, some of this division that we thought we had cured a long time ago. Well, people have to understand you've got to talk about this. You've got to discuss it everywhere that you go. You've got to help people to understand that we do not need or have to tolerate this. And so if you don't talk about it and talk about what should happen to someone who's acting in this manner, then some people will begin to think, well, maybe it's not so bad. Can you remember, it was just a few months ago, when we heard people say, give him a chance. Give him an opportunity to become presidential. And I said to him, he will never be presidential. Because I had taken a very close look at him long before he occupied the White House. During the campaign, of course, we began to see his character. And we began to see that he had no values, that he was a flawed character. And when he pointed to, his own colleagues and called them names, and when he lied right before our very eyes, and when he was obstructing justice even before he got into the White House, then you know that we had to do something. And this was different. If you cannot talk about impeachment, given what we have learned about him and the way that he's defined himself, then impeachment means nothing.
That's right.
Even though the Constitution gives the Congress of the United States the responsibility for impeachment. And so I'm going to continue in this struggle because this struggle is not simply about DACA. It's not even simply about the young people who are held in detention centers all over this country. Young people who have been separated from their parents. Mothers who have been deported, and the children are still here in the United States in a detention center somewhere. It's not even simply about the white supremacists and the KKK and those that we saw in Charlottesville, those that we saw and understood that they now felt emboldened and able, and it was okay for them to act in the manner that they did. And we saw them, and then we saw the president and heard him when he said there are good people on both sides. Right. This is President of the United States of America. And so we have a responsibility to continue. I had a conversation here today when someone asked, but what about Pence? If you were able to impeach, Pence will be worse. And I said, look, one at a time. You're not going down, one at a time. One down, and then we'll be ready for Pence. We'll get him too. Yeah! We cannot be intimidated. We cannot be made to fear anybody who would undermine our ability to have a decent quality of life. You have shown us that, LGBTQ community. You have shown us that you were willing to stand up. I know many leaders of this community who took a lot of abuse, who could not get jobs, who could not get appointments. And now we're being taken back by this president to some of those days, they think, with Ben Carson in HUD, talking about undoing everything that we have done to ensure that there's housing for the LGBTQ community. We cannot take that. We cannot allow that to happen. So I don't care whether it is number 45 or it is Ben Carson, or that awful Betsy DeVos. All of them have to be dealt with, and the way that we deal with them is we stand up, we are strong, we protest, we push back, we resist, we do all of that, and we vote. And we get everybody voting. We have got to register everybody to vote. And so what I would like everybody to do is carry some voter registration cards with you in the car, in the purse, everywhere, so that you start asking people, are you registered? Are you registered? Let's make that question universal. Are you registered? And then stop and let them fill out the form. We can win with the votes. We have got to do well in November. and I think we will. We've got strong candidates who are running for the House of Representatives. It is 23 votes that we need there. We're raising a lot of money, and I think California is going to lead the way. Obama is here for a reason today. He's here because he knows that to the degree that he's able to get our candidates elected, we will lead the way in this country, and that this will give people a lot of hope that we can prevail. A lot of hope that not only can we take back the House and the Senate, but we can take back the White House. I am a strong believer. I'm a strong believer in standing up for justice and equality. I'm a strong believer in fairness. And I basically am moved in extraordinary ways to try and make sure that this country has equal opportunity for everybody. And so I'm going to continue in that work. I thank you for honoring me here today. I thank the young Stonewall Democrats for the work that you're doing. I thank our host here today for the work that you're doing. I thank our elected officials. Let's get more people involved. Let's people to understand each one of us have power, and collectively we have a hell of a lot of power. Let's use it. And let's start with the blue wave. Now, when I came in, they told me there was a Maxine Waters drink. I said, lead me to it. So I had the drink, and it was great. And then I didn't know there were 2 other drinks. There was a blue drink. My husband came, and I thought he was just trying to match his shirt or something. The blue wave. Absolutely. And then, of course, there was the ultimate, the impeachment drink. And so thank you all for your creativity. Thank you for your organizing. Thank you for your fundraising. Thank you for your leadership. And I want you to know that you are not to feel intimidated at all about protesting. Get together in groups. I don't care if about 10 people go stand on the corner of the supermarket just because you feel like doing it. Yeah. And you talk to people who are coming in and going out and telling them America can be better than this. And if some days you're feeling really like you just can't take it anymore, don't wait for anybody else. Just go by yourself. Just go by yourself. Right. Start talking to people. The Constitution guarantees us that right, and we must take advantage of it. Yes. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be honored with you.
What a pistol.
All right, everyone, thank you for coming. That concludes the event. I'd like to thank everyone. Thank you to Assessor Jeffrey Prang for attending, and Robert Pullen Miles. Also, thank you to my husband, Danny Carrasquilla, for being here. And everyone, take a lot of pictures before you leave.